Ladies and gentlemen, it's me, the Einstein of Wall Street, here from the balcony of New York Stock Exchange. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's 10:51 on Thursday, March 12th, and the market is really going through it, right? We are absolutely, look, think about it. We are about 10 days into the war that was started when a coordinated attack by the United States and Israel went into Iran, taking out all of their power parts, and obviously leadership. Thank you, and their leadership, and and it's what it's done is created an atmosphere in the Middle East that I don't think anybody they should have anticipated, but they didn't anticipate it. And obviously any kind of a global confrontation that impacts commodities such as oil, and you're talking about all the biggest players in the world are all in one area, whether it's Russia and China and the Middle East in general. And what we recently did in Venezuela, we're talking about spikes in oil that went from $62 on that Sunday when the attack happened, as high as $119.20, pulled back to $80. The last 2 days we've seen massive spikes, and now that the chatter is down about the actual the nooks and crannies of what's happening war-wise, we are in basically, in my opinion, a straight-up surge in oil price, sell-off in the equity markets trade. And so who better than to understand what goes on in the nooks and crannies than Tim Anderson? Welcome. Good to have you here. What's your take on this? Let's go over the last, from the attack day until today. What do you see is going on here?
Well, look, I think that it's actually a very simple situation.
Okay, I figured you'd say that.
To understand, because even though this has been a complete and total beatdown on Iran's leadership, infrastructure, yeah, and every traditional means that they would have of waging any type of counterattack in this conflict, the fact that there are still groups of people loyal to the leadership, the former leadership, the Revolutionary Guard, whatever terminology you want to put on it, that are able to launch drones at oil tankers in the Gulf,
Dubai, US,
and launch them across the Gulf into the Emirates, and areas that are relatively not really long-range targets.
Correct.
That the market's not going to like that. Right. So, I think that we're down about 1% today. It's like we go down 1% every day, and then we just kind of hang there all day long, maybe waiting for a positive headline, maybe waiting for a new development. Some type of a council in Iran obviously appointed one of the former Ayatollah's sons to be the new leader. He is viewed as a hardliner.
And he's going to be there until the Israelis take him out.
Right. So his lifespan is somewhere between a few hours and a couple of weeks.
It's a quarter a half. Yeah.
Right. And but in the meantime, the market is just going to say, well, okay, show me that you can move oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, and show me that, I think I saw a headline much earlier today that maybe it would be closer to the end of the month before our naval forces would start escorting ships through the Strait. And also there's been this talk of ensuring filling in where Lloyd's of London canceled all of their insurance contracts on these oil tankers, to where the U.S. Treasury, in conjunction with some international fund, is going to put $20 billion together to insure these tankers. I'm sure that they would like to eliminate as many drone threats as possible before that insurance went into effect, because the cost would then be a lot less. And until then, this is just kind of where we are. It's not necessarily a bloodbath for the market. It's not as severe as the tariff tantrum that we saw a year ago, around the same time frame. But it's like a drip, 1% a day, 1.25% a day, something like that. And we just wait for positive developments. Which will eventually take place, but you would have to think that as easily as we destroyed all of their traditional infrastructure and leadership, that certainly very high-level conversations are going on between us and the Israelis as to how do we get at all of these what look like an unlimited amount of drones that they have. Right. Do they have thousands of them in a building somewhere? Maybe we can B-52 bomb them.
Correct. But let's pull back for a second.
I doubt that they're not talking about.
Okay, so the president is trying to make it as clear as possible that this is the price we have to pay to take out Iran, because there are people who think, even on hardliners on the Republican side, on the conservative side, that are saying you are a president who came to office on a no war platform, and why are we now suddenly going for this world domination thing where you're attacking Venezuela, obviously not a boots on the ground situation. We're attacking Iran, which is escalating to really levels. Eight servicemen have lost their lives. Numerous hundreds of people have been severely hurt, and then we are also risking people's lives by having to go through the Straits of Hormuz without any kind of security there. And so people are just saying, and look, obviously we're seeing the market get beaten down, as you said. 1% a day is significant. This is you can't poo-poo what's been going on, because when it happens every day for a while, it adds up clearly. And so we were 1%, 2%, 3% off the record highs, but now from 50,000 to 46 and change on the Dow, or from 7,000 to 6,600 on the S&P tends to be significant. We're seeing a spike up in the last couple of days of, look, we did see oil go from 62 to 119 and pull back. We did see that day where there was a lot of fake news, and that is impacting the market as well, because there was the day 2 days ago and again yesterday where there was yesterday it was the reports of the drone, that the promise by the Iranians of drones attacking the United States. I mean, that no one liked that. Was that a real story? Was the real story about the fact that we were going to escort the boats through the straits, and then that tweet was pulled down? I'm not sure that within the infrastructure of the administration, when everybody is talking to each other, like they're not talking to each other, because they do not have a consolidated message. And when people see that, when that gets splintered, when an administration that is very distinct about its messaging has a splintered message, then markets also find that a cause for anxiety, because we are seeing a 10 15, 20% spike in the VIX on a daily basis as well. So I think there's a number of things here, but I think once the initial war chatter stops, we're basically in the midst of a spike oil sell-off equity trade, right? I mean, that's what we're seeing today. We went from 92 to 100 and change, and the higher it went, the more the market got eroded, right? And then we saw those days that were up, down based on tweets, right? A lot of mixed messaging coming out, some that weren't even in fact, right? Where that's coming from is questionable. But I mean, is this worth it? The bottom line is the president really believes. I'm not sure that if he's playing catch up on this one, whether he anticipated the price of oil to go up as much as it has. It's up 100% in 8 days. That's significant.
Well, I actually think we were probably in the mid 70s. We were maybe around $60 in maybe the beginning of the year.
Right.
Maybe in November.
We were at 66 right before the attack, right? Yeah. And so it's up literally 100% when it spiked. It got as high as 119 and 20 cents. Yeah. So look, you're starting. That's going to start. It's already starting to impact the pump. Right? People are paying, whether it's gouging or what, but it's up 30, 40 cents there. There were places in California where they were selling gas for $8 a gallon. Yeah. But that's when you're going to start seeing the inflationary impact on it, right? Sure. And so that's going to take a minute, but that was fairly quick for that to happen. Right. And so look, we are starting to see rumors of people of the oil producing countries dumping oil on the market now to try and cap this, right? Sure. And look, we did go in and attack Venezuela before this situation, and I guess we have, as part of our inventory, $12 trillion of Venezuelan oil, and I think the president president knew that before this attack. That was surely part of the strategy here, that he did not want the U.S. to be at all impacted. We know that the Straits of Hormuz is the dissemination point of China and Russian oil, and it's less the U.S., and it's surely less the U.S. when after we've gone to Venezuela.
Right, we don't have a shortage of oil here at all. We just have,
Not at all.
you know, there's just a global price spike
Correct.
due to the risks of
Correct.
A prolonged shutdown in the Strait of Hormuz.
My question is, irrespective of the war and the price of what's going on in oil, do you see that without the Mag 7 and the tech sector getting its footing back again, do you see, unless that happens, some people are saying that until that happens or unless it happens, the market is not going to get its footing back and start forging higher?
Well, look, it's very headline sensitive. If we got a development over the next 3 to 4 days where Iran didn't have any drones left.
I'm talking X the war. The war. Let's say before this, because right before the war happened, we were still having a bit of an erosion of the market.
Sure,
right?
yeah,
we were having that whole software.
We're having a
trade.
rotation, a big rotation,
a huge rotation, and we're seeing sectors that were getting beaten down. Software being one of them, and obviously people are wondering: is the bottom been locked in on software or not? Nvidia had a couple of really good days, even in the midst of all this, and but the word was that that can the market forge higher without the Mag 7 finding its footing again?
Well, I think it can, as long as the Mag 7 doesn't go down 30 or 40%. I mean, the Mag 7 really wasn't even in that much of a leadership role the last 6 months of last year.
Right.
You had some, stops and starts along the way. But I think that clearly some other, the story has shifted a little bit to energy, the capital equipment and construction stocks that are needed to build the data centers that are going 100%. To be needed for you. I mean, you can make all the chips, you can make all the fantastic, incredible, life-changing chips that you want, but if you don't have the energy, the data sources to plug them all in, and that are going to require some infrastructure build out. That's part of the Cat Tractor story. The stock was up 35% very early in the year. And
we also saw some Home Depot, some Cat, some Goldman. I mean, you did see a number of names that rallied really well, and that on those off days when the war really was not the preemptive story.
No, we have potentially some blockbuster IPOs still to come later in the year. I haven't really seen any stories that any of them have been being slow walked or shelved because of the war activities. I think there still will be demand for those issues. I think they're going to be high quality IPOs, not IPOs of companies that don't have any revenue, or things like what we saw in the very late stage of the internet revolution in '99. So I think that will be a very positive development for the market when that happens. But people have been talking about third quarter. Mid to late third quarter at best anyways for those IPOs. So I think that most expectations are that this war, if you want to call it that, will be have been wound down by then.
We're hoping within a few weeks. But we had our Oracle earnings the other day, didn't we? Yeah. And they were great.
They were good, and the stock acted well. It should. It was down 50% from where it was
I mean, that's been
a year ago. So, a lot of those stocks were due for some a well-deserved correction. And then after that, they have been responding positively to good news. It's easier to respond to good news when stocks are 50% off their highs than when they're, in these parabolic spikes, looking like.
I agree. Well, we can go back to the November 3rd Palantir trade.
Right, exactly.
When a stock goes up 7 days in a row into the earnings, and they have stellar earnings release, it makes sense stocks are going to go down 6 or 7% with all the uncertainty around that. I mean, and then Nvidia 2 weeks later went down 3 weeks into the earnings and had stellar earnings, and it went up 7%.
You had a lot of parabolic moves that have, kind of, now you're still consolidating gains from the last couple of years
Right.
in a lot of these names. And you also had it in some precious metals. You had it in gold and more so in silver a little bit
Right.
when it traded above 100.
Right.
After a very, very, very sharp parabolic move.
Spectacular.
You know, gold is still acting well. It seems like it's still in a. It hasn't had. It's more than a double from a year and a half
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
but it hasn't had the parabolic spike
Right.
that silver
Right, sure.
has had, and maybe that's what we saw in oil at 120.
and change, right.
I think that most people. And probably if you would look at the oil futures contracts going out 6 and 9 months, I haven't
Right.
looked at them, but I doubt that they're projecting, $90 plus oil
Yeah.
6 months from now.
Yeah,
So
yeah, true. Okay, so you know what? Look, we're in turmoil here. We got nothing but red on the screen, except on the VIX, and so it's going to be a day at a time, minute by minute. We are at the risk of the next crazy tweet or the news that's coming out. We've still got two major superpowers who are on a mission for world dominance without any question, and the president really believes that the risk to the price of oil and the effect it's going to have on inflation is worth taking Iran out of the picture here, and that is, and many people believe that. We do know that as a nuclear risk, that Iran is absolutely a wild card that may not be deserving of being as part of this crazy world we live in. Go back to the game, that old board game Risk. You're right,
Yeah.
the great game of world
well,
dominance.
I mean, we're talking about a country that it was very, very, very close to having nuclear weapon. And
Absolutely, and
nuclear
is hell-bent on the
material,
destruction
and it's
of
being
the
run
state
by
of
crazy
Israel.
people.
100%. So you know what? You take that out, you have a little price to pay with oil, and then you think markets will settle down once this is over. And you know what? We'll see what happens. We'll pick it up with Tim, the man, the myth, the legend, and I am out of here. We're on our way to another day, the Einstein of Wall Street. That's all I got to say about that.